Okay, we're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York. It is the 4th of March, 2007, approximately 10 a.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Joseph Felix Hague, H-A-G-U-E, born December 19, 1924, in New London, Connecticut.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
1 year of high school.
All right. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted
Okay. When did you enter service?
March 1st, 1943.
Okay. Do you remember where you were when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Let's see, I was working, it was a Sunday and I was off. I wasn't working, so I guess it came through the radio or...
Do you remember your reaction at all when you heard about it?
Yeah, I was a bit dumbfounded because I didn't know where Pearl Harbor was.
Very few people did.
And I wasn't into, at that time, the politics of the country, you know. So it was all new to me, you know.
Okay. How old were you when you were drafted?
18.
Okay. Where did you go for your basic training?
Camp Bowie, Texas, outside of Brownwood.
Where did you enlist? I should have asked this first. Where did you enlist? In Connecticut?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it like at Camp Bowie? What do you remember?
Well, of course, it was in March. It was new country. I had never been to Texas. And of course, everything was new when I was young. Of course, it was from daybreak till lights out. It was strictly training. So, and being a rookie, so to speak, a recruit, you know, we didn't leave the camp for I don't know 2 or 3 months or whatever it was. So it was pretty well isolated. It was all these old tar paper barracks up on stilts. You know, it wasn't permanent. Camp Bowie.
Was it all infantry training that you had?
No, it was basic training for tank destroyers.
Okay.
And I moved, after basic training, we went to Fort Hood, Texas, which was Camp Hood at that time. Camp Hood, Texas. And in 3.5 days, it was 105 miles we walked.
Oh my God.
From Bowie to Camp Hood.
Mm-hmm.
It was about around 3.5 days. It was about 105 miles. That was the regime that you did when you went to Bowie. You basic, and then you took the advance in Camp Hood.
What was the advanced training like?
Tank destroyers. Well, first we had half tracks with French 75 millimeter guns, cannons, and then we got what do you call those? M10s. The tank, but they had a turret, but the turret was open on the top, and it had a 3-inch gun on it.
Now, did you train as a driver or a loader, or what exactly did you do?
Well, I trained as a loader, ammo handler, then I became a tank commander. And, 'cause, you know, promotions came pretty fast in those days.
How long were you in Bowie and then Hood? How long were you in there together, all together?
I gotta say, probably 6, 8 months.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go after that?
Bowie, I got transferred to Camp Van Dorn, Mississippi, in the 144th Infantry Regiment, which was part of the old Texas 36th Division, when they made the divisions 3 regiments, and they took a regiment out and left it wherever as training, cadre. That's when the divisions used to be 4 regiments, and they cut it to 3. I don't know about the airborne, I mean the regular Army infantry. That was Camp Van Dorn. It was probably about 50 miles from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's on the southern border of Mississippi. There was more infantry training. So now I'm no longer a tank destroyer. Now I'm in the infantry.
What rank?
Why did they move you out of that? They
I don't know.
just needed infantry probably.
What rank were you at that point?
I think I was a private.
Okay.
How long were you at Van Dorn?
I wasn't there that long, maybe 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go from there?
Let's see, from Van Dorn, I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And for more training, infantry training. I forgot what outfit it was.
When did you finally go overseas?
November 44. I think it was November 44.
Mm-hmm. How did you go overseas? In convoy or?
Yeah, we
Cruise
started out in a convoy. After we went to sea about a couple of days, you know, they allowed us to go topside. I was on the USS George Squire. It was a Navy troop transport. And we were allowed to go out on deck after about the second day. It was clear. I don't forget, our section on the ship was allowed, the deck I was in, to go topside to get some fresh air. And I looked ahead and we were following, they announced it over the thing, we were following the big English liner, Queen
Mary?
Queen Mary was in front of us. We were in a big convoy. Then 2 days later, we come out and we were all alone. Convoy dispersed.
Did you have to pull guard duty at all on ship?
No. No, they had their own.
Probably the armed guard.
Yeah.
I imagine. Where did you land in Europe?
Portsmouth,
You
England.
went to England. Okay.
And then we got out of train in Portsmouth, and we went to Bournemouth, which is on the southern coast of England also. It's right on the channel. And we were there, I don't know, we weren't there too long. We were in an old hotel before we got on a boat and went across to France.
Mm-hmm.
A ferry boat or whatever. I guess it was a ferry boat.
Where did you land in France?
Cherbourg.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you assigned to a unit, or were you the
Yeah, I was in the
replacement?
78th.
Okay.
See, after I left South Carolina, that's when I got transferred to, I'll think of the name of the camp in a minute, Camp Pickett, Virginia. And that's when I joined the 78th, and from
Okay.
there I went overseas.
All right.
Did the whole division go over at that time, or just?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
After you landed at Cherbourg, where did they send you? Did you go right to the front, or?
No, we went to Bournemouth, England, on the southern coast,
Mm-hmm.
and we were there not too long, maybe a month or a little less than that, a couple of weeks. The first thing you know, we were out in the street, we were on the ferry boat, on the train, on the ferry boat.
Oh, you went onto a train that went right onto the boat. Oh, that's interesting.
And went to Cherbourg, and then we took those old, what do you call them, 40 and 8
Mm-hmm.
boxcars
Mhm.
to it was in northern France, I forget where it was now, the town. It was near southern Belgium, Luxembourg area.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, when you're in that bigger group, you don't know where you are half the time. You know?
Mhm,
You're following orders, you know, and probably could care less where we were, you know, just as long as we were still.
Now you arrived there during the winter. Did you get winter gear?
No.
Did you have the overcoats or anything?
We had the overcoats,
Mm-hmm.
but that was about all. We didn't have, we had we got those new combat boots,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with the two leather straps on the side,
Yeah, right.
and
But you didn't have rubber boots or anything?
no.
Mhm.
No.
Now, what kind of weapon did you carry?
Well, first I started out with an M1,
Mm-hmm.
a Garand, and then I wound up with a 1903 Springfield with a sniper's rifle with a Weaver 7-power Weaver scope, and I carried that till the end of the war.
Well, so you were a sniper.
Now, did you have any specialized training to be a sniper?
No,
They just decided you were a good marksman and...
I was considered an expert.
Now, you were involved in the Battle of the Bulge? Want to talk to us about that? How you ended up being there?
Well, we were, when the push came through around the 16th of December 1944, when the Germans started to push westward. We were in what you would call the northern section, where the Germans come in. We were in a town, near a town called St. Vith, V-I-T-H. And we held our position fairly well. That's all we had the strength to do, is to hold that position. Whereas troops south of us were being pushed westward,
Mm-hmm.
you know. There was a fellow that I met that lived here in Saratoga on, I think it was Circular Street, an Italian fellow, I can't think of his name. He died here about 2 or 3 years ago. He was in the same division, I didn't know it. I met him one day.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were in the Hurtegen Forest then?
Yeah, Hurtegen Forest.
What was that like?
It's a forest. I don't know what it's like today, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a heavy growth of timber, big trees. I guess it's what they used to call the Black Forest.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were in that action, did you have your sniper's rifle or did the M1?
No, snipers, right?
Okay. were your assignments? To pick off officers or
Any targets you could
any
find.
target?
As,
Now, did you wear a camouflage at all? Did you have any white covering at all?
like gloves were short, socks and stuff like that, we didn't have the supplies,
Mm-hmm.
That came later, but the German breakthrough is what kind of broke our back at the time, we were moving along and then all of a sudden, we just stopped, in a whole new position.
Mm-hmm.
Were you still a private, Joe?
Let's see, what was I then? No, I think it was a PFC at that time. It was a PFC. Of course, when you get in an infantry company, it was about 175, something like that. 170 plus the officers. There's only so many slots
Mm-hmm.
by, corporals and sergeants, so forth, so on. But there's a lot of privates.
Mm-hmm. Now, during the action in the Hurtegen Forest, were you in the field most of the time? Where did you sleep?
Anywhere.
Anywhere? Okay. How did you keep warm?
Well, of course, when you're 18, 19 years old, it's a lot different then than it is today,
Yes.
So, the cold, we weren't more concerned about the wetness,
Mm-hmm.
snow or rain, and what that is, because it's wintertime now,
Yeah.
it's cold. But, any place, maybe sometimes we'd be in a village or something, we'd take over some houses or something, or a cellar, or
Mm-hmm.
an old bunker, or anything that was available,
Mm-hmm.
because you still had the duty of protecting your perimeter, your unit, and so forth, so on, when you weren't actually moving forward.
Did you ever suffer from frostbite at all?
My feet frozen. As a matter of fact, they sent me back in January. They sent me back to, where did they send me? Paris. And from Paris, they sent me to Oswestry, England, to a hospital. My legs, about halfway up to my knees, were they were in bad shape. They were black, blue. I almost lost them. And it's left my feet, had left my feet with poor circulation. Ever since then, the winter time, I go outside in cold weather, and 10 minutes my feet are freezing.
You've since lost toes, right?
Circulation.
You've lost some toes due to that?
Pardon?
You did lose some toes due to that? You lost some of your toes?
Yeah, some of them.
Okay. Let me ask you something. When you were a sniper, were you part of a team? Were you with a group of other snipers? or-
No, because the infantry, I don't know how it was with you, but the infantry had a platoon,
Mhm.
and the platoon had 3 squads. And you had a platoon officer, a platoon sergeant, and then you had a squad leader,
Mhm.
which was usually a sergeant. The platoon sergeant was usually a tech sergeant, and an assistant squad leader would be maybe a corporal on the other end.
Okay.
So you were utilized where you were needed.
Okay.
We didn't have like assignments, so to speak.
Mhm.
Did you ever have any problems with your gun, with it being a bold action? Did you have problems with it at all?
Yeah, I broke the stock on one, and I went back to the Garand for few days till I finally got a hold of the supply sergeant, and they had another 03 Springfield, and I took the sight off of mine and put it on that one. But there was a 1903 A1 Springfield. That was a World War I.
Yeah.
Very, I'm told since then that it made a nice deer rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Not being a hunter, but I've been told it made a nice deer rifle. It wasn't, I think it had less, the 03 was less of a problem mechanic-wise than the Garand or the M1, because the M1 was a gas operated, and you had to keep them clean, and you know, you stuck the barrel with a gas port up near the muzzle. If it got clogged with mud or something, you had problems. And there wasn't much action, it's just a bolt on the other one.
What was your food like? Did you carry K rations?
K rations. And once in a while, if we pull off the front for a couple of days or something like that, or 3 days, we'd have a hot meal, you know. But most of the times K rations or C rations or 10 in 1. They used to have a package, a box. And it was what they call 10 in 1. It would be enough food to feed 10 men for 1 day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all little, like these little tuna fish cans. You open them up and it'd be potted meat. But it was a change from eating a Cracker Jack box K rations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with their fruit bars to keep you free.
How often did you get a change of clothes or a shower?
Oh God, 2 or 3 weeks. Clip.
Now, how long were you hospitalized with the frostbite?
I was going somewhere around 25 days.
Did you go right back to the front after you?
Yeah, well, I come back into through what they call a repo depot.
Oh, replacement unit.
Yeah, and I come back, went back to fortunately, to my own company.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had left, we had a first sergeant. I'm lost, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he was an older fella. He was probably in his 30s. And we had a company clerk. His name was Henry Gonzalez. Right? Nice young fellow. About 20, 21 years old. He was a PFC, he was a company clerk. When I came back, he's got 3 up and 3 down.
Yeah.
First sergeant. So much turnover.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still living my paper, that book that I gave you for the 78th Division.
Oh, yes.
I graduated, he lives in Maryland now. But yeah, I come back at first, I reported into the CP, and I saw this corporal there. I said, so where's the first sergeant? I told him who I was, I had papers. And he says, in the other room, it was in a house. It was in Luxembourg, I forget the town. And I go to the other room and I looked at this. Hague, yeah. Yeah, I looked at it. He was first sergeant. A month ago he was a private PFC.
Did your unit lose many in the forest?
Yeah, we had, I would say that we probably turned over probably 70%. Because when I come back, I didn't know anybody, you know. There was a few guys that I knew from my, you only got to know people in your own squad or platoon, you know, because you had other platoons that you didn't have anything to do with, you know. And my platoon leader was a second lieutenant, and he wound up at the end of the war as a captain. As a matter of fact, he became the company commander. Captain Hunter got wounded, he went back to the hospital, and this officer, Captain Lieutenant Barsley, got promoted to captain. He got to be a first lieutenant, then he went to captain. And he came from Revere, Massachusetts. As a matter of fact, I made the contact with his daughter, because I read in our 78th Division magazine where his daughter had joined the magazine as an associate member. And I said, Barsley, brother, that's Captain Barsley. Ross, his first name was Ross. And I called her up on the telephone. She's in Minnesota somewhere. Oh, I thought she'd go through the telephone. She heard from me, you know. Because we were very, he was my platoon leader as a second lieutenant, you know. And I saw him go up through the ranks. And he wound up a vice president of General Foods.
Wow.
And he died in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Overall, how did you feel about your officers?
We had good officers. We had good officers. I'll tell you, maybe the situation today is different or something, I don't know. But we didn't have time to say who's a good one, who's a bad one. They had orders. They got orders and they gave orders, you know. And most of them, especially the infantry, you're pretty close to your officers. I mean, they're not distant from you, because they have to get along with the troops as well as the troops have to get along with them. But I never had any problem with the officers. But first of all, I had the idea that they required my respect as an officer because they were more learned, more trained, so forth and so on. So, but I don't ever remember anybody having any problem with officers. Most of the time they're too busy to worry about that.
Where did you go when you came back from your hospital time?
I got my outfit, the 78th Division, at the end of World War II, wound up going to Berlin to relieve the 2nd Armored Division. The 78th Division became what was known as the Constabulary in Berlin. I had enough points that I could have come home. It was on a point system.
Right.
But I stayed over and I got transferred out because I didn't want to go to Berlin. And I had the option, and I got transferred into a quartermaster trucking company, 3707, QM Trucking Company. And my duties was at that time, I was, what was I? I was a corporal, I guess. And I was stationed in Bad Wildungen in Germany. And me and another fella, no, I was a sergeant. Me and another fellow, a corporal, our duty was to drive 6x6 truck every day into Kassel, Germany, and back to Bad Wildungen for supplies from the railhead. 3rd Division was 3rd Division headquarters. It was Audie Murphy's division. And they were, and that's all we did. I did that, and then in November of 1945, I got discharged in Germany, and I re-enlisted in Germany for a short 18 months. And I spent some more time in Germany, then I came back to the United States, and I got out in June 1st of 1947.
Now, were you aware at all of the concentration camps?
We were liberated one, which was, I can't think of the name of it, it was in Germany. It was all, the inmates were all women, and they all had their heads shaved off. They were, that's a nice way to put this. They were companions to the German officers. And they were Hungarian. And of course we couldn't talk to them too much, you know. And we went to their barracks afterwards. This was maybe a couple of days later. And a few of us guys went there. And we asked, you know, what we could do to help them, right? One of the things they needed mostly was shoes. So 2 other guys and myself, we got a hold of a 6x6 truck, and we went to a town nearby, and we spent a couple of hours in that town looking for shoe stores. And we threw a whole bunch of shoes in that 6x6 and took them back out to the camp. And dropped the tailgate and told us, we took all the shoes, men's, women's, kids' shoes, or whatever. It was given to them. But they were nice. They were.
Were they pretty well taken care of since they were used as companions for the soldiers?
Well, yeah, I guess more so than a normal concentration camp. You know. Of course, a lot of times, you know, you could be near a concentration camp that had just been liberated, but not by your outfit. You know, maybe another regiment or another division or something. You know, because they were all over Germany. You know. But that was the closest one that I remember. Seems like an awful long time ago.
Now, on your way home, you had a story about the ship that you took. The ship you took home.
Oh, yeah. Here's a George Washington. Well, we left Le Havre, France. I got transportation to Le Havre, and we wound up at a holding area, right? The deportation to go back to the United States. I had to go. I forget, there was quite a few days I had to wait to get a call that I was going to get on the boat. It was in Le Havre, France, which is near Cherbourg. And we got out at night, so we didn't notice what the boat was. It was a boat, went up the gangway, and that was it. But they gave a picture of the ship at sea, and on the back they had a stamp. Well, probably the stamp was maybe a 4x6 stamp. And then it told about the ship. It said the USS George Washington, built Kiel, Germany, 1909, christened the George Washington, so forth. And carried troops in World War I. Carried troop was part of the repatriation.
Oh, yes, okay.
You know, we took it from the Germans, right? And so when I got home, I opened my sea bag that night that I got home, in my home, my mother and father, and I had that picture And I showed him a picture. I said, "This is a ship I come back on." He looked at it. He says, "Yeah." He says, "That looks." He says, "Almost like the thing that I come back on in 19." He came back on it out of Murmansk, Russia, because after World War I, he didn't come right home. They said he was in a motor transportation corps. They sent him to Poland, and he was instructed in Liberty trucks, you know, and so forth and so on. And he came back in 1919, I guess it was. So anyway, and I said, "Well, it tells on the back." I says, "It tells you how big it was." You know, I forget how. It was like 900 and some feet long. It had the, I'll never forget it. It had the largest twin screw reciprocating engines in the world at that time. And my father looked at that and he says, "That's the same ship that I come back on in 1919. Is you kidding?" I said, "No, this is George Washington." So we landed in New York City.
You were discharged from there?
No, because I still had time left.
Oh, okay.
And I
that's-
went to camp in Virginia.
Pickett,
No,
Oh, with transportation, maybe Houston.
Eustis,
No.
Fort Lee.
Belvoir.
That's it, Camp
Belvoir.
Lee.
Lee.
Camp, you remember, I keep talking camp, because they changed these things to
Yes.
forts. It was Camp Lee. And I was a sergeant, and I got assigned to the second group, training group for Camp Lee, Virginia. This is when the service was still segregated. The first group was black, and the second group was white. I was in the second group. It was a big camp. And what they did in that camp was they trained bakers, they trained mechanics, and all that kind, because it's a quartermaster camp. So I reported to the first sergeant. He was a sergeant major, as a matter of fact. And he says, "What are you going to do, Sergeant?" I says, "I don't know, they just sent me here. I had my orders, right?" And I gave it to him, and he said, "Oh, I don't know." He says, what I could do, he says, "I got a guy, a young guy, that's leaving." He says, "Maybe he should put you in his slot." I said, "What does he do?" He said, "Well, he's a dispatch rider." I said, "Well, what's a dispatch rider?" He said, "Well, he works out in a message center, right, which was right across from group headquarters." So I wound up in a message center. This guy retired, got discharged from the Army, young kid. And he wound up, he said, "You ride a motorcycle?" I said, "I don't know." I said, I never did. He said, "Well," he says, if you're going to be a dispatch rider," he says, "you got to ride a motorcycle." So we had all these companies all over the camp. And I used to, so I took, before this kid Lacey retired, I said, "How about teaching me how to ride that motorcycle?" So he did. Went out to the motor pool, drove around, right? It was a Harley 45, right? So I got the job of riding a motorcycle. I never rode a motorcycle in my life. I rode a bicycle, but not a motorcycle. And I did that for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. They made me message center chief. So I had charge of the message center. I had, I think, 5 guys. And all of the paperwork that come into group headquarters, we were like the mail. And you get stacks of paper, would be court-martials, the decisions of court-martials. And every company commander in that area, which there was quite a few companies, they'd get a copy of it. Well, that's what you sent them out, they had these pigeonholes, it was like a postal system. So that's why I got discharged out of that area. They sent me to Fort Mammoth, New Jersey, the last 3 months, 4 months, to the 229th Signal Battalion, right? They wanted me to make a pole line chief. The first sergeant, I says, what do I know about? Oh, telephone poles, all that stuff. Well, you'd be surprised when you're young how quick you can learn. And of course, I was a sergeant, and they put me in charge of a crew, right? And they'd see these kids, 18, 19 years old, put on those cleats, you know, climb up telephone poles. There's no way you can't get me go up that poles. But anyway, it was June 1st, I got discharged from Fort Mammoth. It was not the main fort. They had an annex called Camp Wood, which was like overflow from Monmouth. This was near Red Bank, New Jersey. It was June 1st of 1947. And I did 2 hitches in the Army Reserves. 2 3-year hitches, 6 years. It was an engineer company in Connecticut.
Now, did you receive a Purple Heart?
Yes.
For,
Wounds. I had shrapnel wounds on my left leg.
where did that happen?
And at the same time I had my feet problems.
Now, were you ever called up for Korea?
No. But I'll tell you what, when I got out, I was, what, 23, somewhere around 23. And you had to be registered for the draft. You gotta remember the draft was on. If you were under 25. So I had to register for the draft. And I got a draft card, and the draft card classification was 4A, previous military service. And it was 2 years later, when I was 25, I got dropped off of the draft list.
Did you make use of the GI Bill after you returned home?
No.
How about the 5220 Club?
I don't think I had that either. No, what did I get? I got a $300 bonus from the state of Connecticut. Because I only went 1 year to high school, so if I had graduated from high school, I might have thought of going to college or something, but.
Did you get your college or high school degree eventually?
I got my high school. I got out of school in 1940 and quit. I was 16. In 1963, 23 years later, they didn't have GED those days in 63 like they do now. You get a GED anyplace. So I had to write to the State Board of Education. And they sent me back, and I told them what I wanted. And they said that 3 months hence, in either Bridgeport or Norwich, Connecticut, and Norwich was only 12 miles away, I could take an exam. So I did. I wrote back to them, the State Board of Education. It was a woman who was a commissioner, and she set me up for a date in NFA, Norwich Free Academy High School in Norwich, Connecticut, and I took a 4.5-hour exam. So about 3 weeks later I get one of these envelopes like this, and open it up, and it's State of Connecticut Board of Education, high school diploma, not GED. It was signed by the commissioner, and on the back was my marks. Believe it or not, I had an 87.2 average. It wasn't bad. I figured after 23 years, if I didn't know what a high school kid knew, it must have been pretty stupid. So that was one of my cherished things, is that high school diploma. It's a good thing, because what enticed me, I had worked at the shipyard. And
Now, what shipyard was that?
Electric Boat Company, Groton, Connecticut.
When did you start working there?
April of 1957. And I had an opportunity, I foresaw an opportunity to become a boss. This is in 1963, after I had been there for 6 years. But you had to have a high school diploma. So that's what enticed me to take that high school diploma. So the minute I did, I went up and I took the diploma up to industrial relations. I stayed over after work. I went up to industrial relations and the employment office, if you will. And I said, hey, I got a diploma. So get in my record. So about 6, 7 months later, the superintendent called me up. I was first class mechanic. The superintendent called me up to his office. And he said, I want to make you a boss. I almost fell through the floor. I didn't expect it, really. That soon. That soon. So they have a little button. They had a badge. They have a little button. It's got with the screw on the back, right? And you poke a hole in your badge, you put it in, so that shows that you're a foreman. And so I walked out of his office. I was a boss. Right? And I was a boss until I retired.
When did you retire?
When?
When, yes.
July 31st, 1987. Almost 20 years ago.
Now, you worked on the nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
What changes did you see happen while you were at Electric Boat Company?
Well, the changes were in the quality was always good, but the quality got better. Better ways of doing things through research and design and so forth, so on. Building the only thing that's made in this country that's built better than a submarine, I'd say it's probably on an equal, is a spaceship. Other than that, there isn't an automobile that's built anywhere near. I don't care if it's a Cadillac or a Mercedes that a submarine is built on, because you've got to remember, you got 140 guys on a sub, could be 120, 140. You know, these guys are going to go down there 2,000 feet underwater, you want to come back up again. So you want to make sure that the thing stays together and so forth, so on. It's a very, very interesting occupation. Very interesting. I found it so.
What made it that way?
What's the challenge? What's the challenge is to see things come together from nothing to something that weighs 18,000 tons that can go 30 miles an hour underwater and stay underwater till you run out of food. You know, I mean, it's absolutely amazing when you come right down to it. I gave Pat a view, what do you call them there? Tapes. So it's all about submarines.
Did you ever work on any diesel subs when you first started there?
No, I shouldn't say no. Diesels were gone. The last diesel that we had in the shipyard wasn't built. It came in for some repairs. It was a 350, the Dogfish. we had built it originally in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of course, now I'm talking 1965, right? And those days they had 4 diesel engines in it. Well, this one had 2 diesels that were running. The other 2 diesels they took out and put some electronic gear in. And one of the diesels was running and the other one wasn't running good. I don't know, I think it was headed for the scrap heap. You know, there was no more use for it. We had the Nautilus, the Seawolf, the Skate, Trident, you know, all the nuclear, right? Yeah. And
Did you ever go out on one of the subs?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm not claustrophobic, but I was glad when we come back in and put my foot on the ground again. You gotta like that, you know. It's just like you couldn't get me up in a spaceship, you know. It was, and I'm not too happy about going down underwater either. But you gotta like it. Yeah.
Now, you told me your daughter works there?
My daughter has been there 34 years. She's a foreman. She works with a hard hat. She works on the boat. She don't work anymore because she's a boss. She's been a boss 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she's on salary. Then I have 2 boys that are shipwrights on a second shift. One's been there 30 years, the other one's been there 27 years. And they work second shift.
Mm-hmm.
They get 7% for second shift premium.
Mm-hmm.
Their rate is $21.15 an hour. Time and a half for Saturday, double time for Sunday, and double time for holidays. And I got one boy, Joey, the youngest, he's 50. He works 3 Saturdays and Sundays out of every month. And he takes nothing, 11, 12, $1,300 a week. But, you know, you're working 10, 12 hours a day, you know.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
Well, I'll tell you, it's an experience that I'm glad I went through. I met a lot of guys. Most of the guys that you meet are within your squad or your platoon. And the worst thing about it is when one of them you find out isn't with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you never know whether they were just wounded and didn't come back or they got killed or what. So it's really hard to make close friends. You have more or less you have acquaintances. You know, because God, you may know somebody a month and then look around, he's gone.
Now, you brought this in. If you just hold it like this in front of you, Wayne can focus on it. Now, do you remember where and when that photograph was taken? About.
I would say probably about May of 1943.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you also receive a Bronze Star? What was that for?
All recipients of the Purple Heart. Great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your interview.
Well, you're entirely welcome. I want to add that, and I think I told you this before, the state of Connecticut, my son's got, this is the state of Connecticut, it was just authorized in 2005
Here, why don't you hold that up and Wayne will show it.
Yeah, it's a World War II Veteran Service, the state of Connecticut, issued 2005.
Okay, got it.
All right. Thank
This,
Here's some other things.
there's one other thing, I showed you this before.
Oh, yes, yes. Why don't, if you hold that up,
Well, that's nice.
Wayne
No.
can focus on that.
Since then, I've improved this. My son has got a thing about that big under glass. And I've always metal, except I don't have that in there anymore. I have the 78 Division patch. But I got all my regimental pins.
Oh,
You know,
yes,
regimental,
yeah.
and they're in there. It's much nicer. This was
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
You second generation infantryman, Joe?
Was your father in the infantry?
My father, believe it or not, I was in the 78th Division, right?
Mhm.
My father was in the 77th Division.
Oh, the New York unit.
New York
Yeah.
outfit, right?
Catching a thing.
He's
in the
catching
back.
the,
In the city hall in this city of London, Connecticut, they have a wall that's as big as that wall, it's bronze. It's a plaque. It's as big as that. In World War I, all the men that were in the service, it's in the lobby of the town hall in London, Connecticut, and my father's name is
Your dad was wounded also, wasn't he? Joe?
he was wounded. He was wounded in Bellow Woods,
oh, okay.
and which is near where the Battle of the Bulge area.
Yeah.
He got what do you call it? Back of his left leg was all scar tissue. Well, I don't know what he got. He could gas, mustard gas. It's the Germans who use it. But, I've got a picture of him. It is,
Helmet and
the cowboy hat.
Oh, the campaign hat.
a campaign hat, okay.
The puttees with the wrapped
Yes,
leggings.
yeah.
And I got all that together, and my son Mike's got it. And I told him, I said, because my grandson that's in the Army today, he did a tour in Korea, and he came back and he did a tour in Kuwait, and he did a tour up in the northern part of Iraq. They're not Shiites.
Kurds.
Kurds, yes,
yes.
that's where. And so he works he's still in the Army. He's attached to something to the state of Connecticut National Guard, doing something. And his offices in the Army, the new Army they built in New London. So I don't know whether he's ever going to go back again or not. I don't know. I just wish if they all got out of there.
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, you're entirely welcome.
This is